I welcome you back to our online class. Last week, our class couldn't hold because of the public holidays. Even though we are on lockdown, but we had to follow and observe the public holiday and get some rest. So this morning, we are continuing with our class. And today's class, we shall be examining theories of administration. Theories of administration. In most books, you will see it as theories of administration. You see it as theories, organizational management theories, and you can also see it as principle of administration. Principles of administration. So when you hear the term administrative theories, organizational management theories, theories of administration, principles of administration, they are all the same thing. They're talking about the same principle, the same thing. They're talking about theories of administration. And when we say theories of administration, what do we mean? What it means here are the constructs, ideas of how best organizations can be managed to achieve results. How best, they are constructs, they are basic principles, they are basic ideas of how organization can best be managed to remain effective and productive. So we shall first of all examine historically how administrative theories came about, how administrative theories were developed. Now we can trace the origin of administration to the period of the 3000 BC. Historically, the practices of management can be traced to 3000 BC. Can trace it to the Egyptians and Sumerians. So we can say that was the period when management or administration started. If you recall the period of the Egyptian pyramids, when they were building the pyramids, that was the time administration was put in place. So they used administration then, or management, to be able to build those Egyptian pyramids that we know in history. So when we trace the first practice of management or administration, it is traceable to the Sumerians and the Egyptians during that period, the 3000 BC, before Christ was born. But when we begin to trace it in terms of modern study of management, we can trace it back to the 19th and earlier 20th century. So we can trace the study of management to the late 19th and early 20th century, when management practices started. And management practices started as a result of industrial revolution in the 19th century. So with the industrial revolution, there was the establishment of industries. Industries were now being used to manufacture goods and render services. Because industries were being used now, human beings were employed. There were use of machines. Then there arose the need to organize the industries in a structure that will make use of human beings and machines to achieve results. Now, because there was the use of human beings and machines and equipment, there was also need to devise means of managing these human beings, coordinating their activity in such a way that they will be able to achieve results. Because at this point in time, because of the use of human beings and how organizations were structured, there were always conflicting interests, conflict between management and workers. So for that reason, there were a number of strikes, incessant strikes, that was always taking place that time. So because of the problems associated with the early management structure, then there became need for scholars to carry out further studies on how best organizations can be managed in order to achieve results without much friction between workers and management. So that now resulted to a lot of theories, administrative theories, on how best organizations can be managed to achieve results without much problem. So that now gave rise to what became known as administrative theories. However, scholars of administration differs in their propositions on theories of how organizations can best be managed to achieve results. So that now gave rise to several theories. These theories, we now classify them as approaches, put all of them and call them approaches to organizational management. They are now known as approaches to organizational management, or administrative theories, or administrative principles. Now, these administrative principles, when we study them and understand the theoretical positions of each of the theories, it tells us and explains to us how these theories can be applied in an organization to achieve efficiency and effectiveness in goal attainment. Now, we have basically three approaches to the study of organizational management. We have three approaches to that. The number one approach is called the classical organizational theories or organizational school of thought. The classical organizational school of thought or classical approach to the study of management. Take that again. The first approach to organizational management is called the classical organizational school of thought or classical approach to organizational management. Then two, the human relations approach. The human relations approach to organizational management, otherwise also known as the human relations movement. The number two is the human relations approach to organizational management or human relations movement. Three, then we have behavioral science approach to organizational management. Behavioral science approach to organizational management. So we have here basically three approaches to the study of organizational management. Three approaches to the study of organizational management. Now, in these three approaches, the first approach is the classical organizational school of thought. The classical organizational school of thought. That's the one we shall be examining. First, classical organizational school of thought. Now, why we call them school of thought? That they are a group of scholars who share this idea of how organizations can best be managed to achieve results. So we call them the classical organizational school of thought. All the people that share this idea and share this principle and theory put together, they are known as classical organizational school of thought. They believe in this theory. This theory was developed between 1900 to 1930. Between 1900 to 1930. Now, under this theory, under the classical theory, we have three administrative theories. Under the classical school of thought, under the classical organizational school of thought, we have three administrative theories. Namely, A, the scientific management theory, B, the bureaucratic organizational theory, and then three, the administrative principles. So, under the classical organizational school of thought, we have three administrative theories. Those theories include 1, the scientific management theory, 2, the bureaucratic theory, and then 3, administrative principles. Now, we shall be examining each of these principles and how they apply in an organizational setting for goal attainment in such organization. First, we shall begin with the administrative principle. We shall begin with the scientific management theory. The scientific management theory. The scientific management theory is the first classical approach to organizational management, to the study of organizational management. The founding father of this theory is a scholar called Frederick Taylor. Frederick Taylor is the father of the scientific management theory or scientific management principle. He is the leader of this thought. He is the initiator of this thought. He tried to describe scientific management as the study of the relationship between people and task. The study of relationship between how people, the people that do the work and the task they do. That's the study he conducted was on how to study the people and the task they do. And to do this, he said that to do this and achieve results, you must study human being and the work they do from the angle of science. From the angle of science. And what does science do? Science follows certain procedure to achieve result. That's why we call it scientific process. So Freddie Taylor advocated that the scientific approach or scientific principles should be applied in the study of people and the nature of the job they do, with the aim of increasing efficiency and effectiveness in goal attainment. So he said that the manager should be able to work out a procedure, a methodology, a scientific process, whereby when workers follow that process, they will achieve results in goal attainment, than the rule of thumb procedure of doing things that was obtainable in the early period. Rule of thumb here means you do things as it is. They follow certain this thing. It is this way. It must be done this way to achieve result. No, he is saying no. When you use that way, workers will not achieve result. Say for example, a workman in a building project was hired to lay block, and you agree with him that in a day, as usual, as is the rule of thumb, that by the end of the day you will pay him 3,000 naira per day, and he comes to that place, he's doing the job, he knows that by the end of the day he will be paid 3,000. That is the rule. So he will be sleeping on duty. At the slightest opportunity, he will say he's on break. At the slightest opportunity, he will go and tell you he wants to urinate. At the slightest opportunity, he will engage in one thing or the other. He's waiting for the time, maybe 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock, as the case might be, the rule of the thumb, and then the work closes, you pay him 3,000 naira. But when you look at what he has achieved, he may have achieved nothing. So Freddie Taylor is saying, no, when this method is applied, workers will not achieve results. There will be inefficiency. The goal, the work will suffer. So therefore, let's follow a scientific procedure that will make workers to achieve results. So he now developed what he called time and motion study. Time and motion study. He brought in time, how you can use time and fix time for a job, and tell a worker, when you achieve this result by so time, you earn this amount of money. So that will make workers to be serious with the work. That work now is time bound. We are giving you 1,000 blocks to lay in so number of hours. When you finish 1,000 blocks, we pay you 5,000 naira. So the worker will work hard to achieve that result. And if you achieve, for every 1,000 block you achieve, any other extra work you are able to do, we pay you another 100 naira per block. So he now introduced this procedure, and then it now make workers to work hard to achieve that result, achieve goal. So a building, for example, that you would have achieved in building for in 3 months can be achieved in 1 month using this principle of time and motion study. All right, so let's proceed and see how Taylor break down this thing into specifics. Now, he said that Taylor believed that the amount of time and effort a worker spent in producing a unit of product could be reduced if specialization and division of labor were introduced in the work. So his opinion here is that instead of wasting time by bringing people to follow the rule of thumb, how work is done, and then by the end of the day, they waste all the time and nothing is achieved, and then you pay. Now, say, let's follow this procedure. The amount of time a worker spent in producing a unit will be reduced if we now follow what we call specialization. So what we now know popularly in organizations that we call specialization and division of labor was introduced by Frederick Taylor. He said people should be every worker should specialize in a given job. And when every worker is specialized in a given job, it results to what is called division of labor. Everybody engage in areas where you have a comparative advantage and where you have requisite knowledge. So if, for example, in a building project, we have the medicine, then we have electrical fitters, then we have the plumber, then we have, in that order, we have the carpenter. So people should specialize in their areas, and their work should be time bound. And for every work that you want to give out, you give specific time frame between which that job should be done and the amount of money to be paid. That will motivate the worker to do the work, and then you will achieve results. That is the essence of the scientific management principle. The scientific management principle, as advanced by Frederick Taylor, uses the scientific procedure in a work environment, so that when the scientific procedure or scientific processes is applied in work environment or in an organization, it will facilitate the process of achieving goal, and the end result will be that that organization will be effective and efficient in achieving the goals of the organization. Now, apart from Taylor, there were other scholars that also aligned with him, that also worked on this scientific management, and are believed to be scholars in this area. They include scholars like Henry Kant, Lillian M. Gilbert, and several other of them. They also developed certain principles and procedures on how this theory can work. Now, specifically here, our study is on Frederick Taylor's scientific management principles or theory. So we'll look at, he developed 6 principles based on the scientific management theory. He developed 6 principles that managers in an organization need to follow so that workers can achieve results. He developed 6 principles which must be followed for workers to achieve results and for organization to be effective and efficient in goal attainment. So we call it Taylor's Principles of Scientific Management. Taylor's Principles of Scientific Management. They include the following. One, he said, management has to study the way workers perform their tasks, gather all information about job knowledge that workers possess, and experiment with ways of improving how tasks are performed. What this means is that for you to engage somebody as a worker in an organization, you must first of all, have knowledge, be knowledgeable. The manager should be knowledgeable on the nature of the task and gather every information about that task, how that task should be done. For example, you are an engineer, you are in charge of a site, you are the manager of a site to erect a building. You should be able to have all the relevant information about medicine work, about block laying, all right? And should be able to know the number of blocks a worker should be able to lay in a day. Have all that information with you before you can engage a worker to perform the job. You should be able to know, experiment ways of how this task can be done first. So that is science. You should first of all conduct an experiment of how a job ought to be done, the best approach that could be adopted for a job to be done, and result will be achieved. When you have all that information with you, then you can now proceed and hire a laborer or hire a staff. And of course, by this you would have known, and you now tell the staff, this and this and this is what I expect you to do at this given period in time. And you see the staff will achieve it. All right, so the next one is, he said, number 2, there should be a standard method for performing each job. There should be a standard method of performing each job. So it means that for each job, There should, for each job, there should be a standard procedure of how that job should be done. There should be a standard procedure of how that job should be done. Now, when there is a standard procedure of how the job should be done, as already established by the manager, what the worker does is, as you come into that job, you do that thing according to that standard procedure, and you achieve result. You know, so the procedure is already laid down. So it's you, the worker now, who comes with the skill and knowledge of that job. They tell you this is what you should be doing from so time to so time. So there should be a standard procedure of how work should be done. When there is a standard procedure of how work ought to be done, the laborer or the employee who occupies that position works in accordance with that procedure, and the result must be achieved. Result must be achieved. When they tell you that in the next 5 minutes, this is what you should be achieved. Press this button, press this button, press that button, and then you get the result. When you press those buttons, you achieve the result. So the standard procedure is already laid down for the worker to follow. And when the worker follows that procedure, he must achieve the result. But if those standard procedures are not there and a worker is employed and put in place, he can waste his time there. He'll be wasting time. So the scientific procedure lays down this principle. Then number 3. So the manager should carefully select workers who possess skills and abilities appropriate for each job. The manager should select workers who possess skills and abilities appropriate for each job. What this means is that when there is a job to be done, when there are given jobs to be done, the manager of the organization should be able to select among the workers the best. The best. Now, what this theory here has brought in management, in modern management, is staff selection. Now, when there is any job, any vacancy, people are recruited. So, among the people to be recruited, that the manager should be able to select the best. Among them, select the best. So, it is Edward-Adiele that developed this principle that currently, before people are employed, it is that job position is advertised. The essence of advertisement is to get a pool of all those who are qualified in that area and then subject them to aptitude tests in that area. The best is selected to do the job. So when you put the best in an organizational setting, you will achieve fast results. And that organization will be making profit, will achieve goal. Now, number 4 now, workers have to be trained in standard methods. Workers have to be trained in standard methods. Now, it is not enough to recruit the workers into the organization. You have to train them in the standard way of doing that. In the standard way of doing that work, so that they will achieve results. So when assuming you are an engineer, you hire laborers to go, you have medicine men, electricians to come and in a building project. You should be able to educate them, to train them on what is expected of them. After you had selected the best among them, you now train them in the standard procedure you want that job to be done. This is how I want this. This is how it should be done. You train them in that line. When they have that training, the job becomes effective. They are effective in their job. And then when they are effective, efficiency will be achieved. Efficiency here means achieving goal at minimal cost. Achieving desired goal at minimal cost. You know, you can build a house, say 3-bedroom flat, with 2 million, and somebody else can also build the same house with 1 million and achieve better results. That is efficiency. You know, and then the time with which you will achieve that result is also minimized. Effectiveness is achieved here. You know, so when a manager is able to do all this, you will achieve. So somebody will be building one house for 6 months. Somebody else would have achieved building the same house for 3 months and minimizing costs. You know, so that's what Edward-Adiele is saying here. When you follow all these principles, you'll be able to achieve results at a minimum time. So that's what he's saying. Now, the number 5, he said, work should be planned. Plan the work. Plan the work schedule of workers to eliminate interruption and time wasting. In planning work for workers, you must be able to plan it in such a way that it will not waste time. It will avoid time wasting, interruptions, and time wasting. You will agree with me here that a lot of workers in an organization are engaged in time wasting activities. They are engaged in time wasting activities. And all those time wasting activities that workers do, for example, you are in the office, all right? Now, within the official time when you are in the office, you have relatives visiting you. When they visit you in an office and you begin to chat with them, you are wasting time. The time you would have spent on that job, you are wasting it gisting. Your friends will leave their office and come and chat with you. That is time wasting. So he's saying that plan the work schedule in such a way that all the things that make a worker to waste time is removed. So when it's time for work, you work. Nobody visits you. That's why you see in some offices they say visiting hour. They put the time there. So except it is that time, you won't enter that office because the man need to sit down and work. But places where this thing is not operational, people waste time doing irrelevant things. And then by the end of the day, what would have been achieved is wasted. So that's why he's saying here, plan it in such a way that the time for work is time for work, time for break is time for break. So you can now go out and gist. After that time, you come back and sit down and do the job. When you do, if I'm still explaining it here, when you follow it, you will achieve results. Even on your personal principle or personal study habit, if you follow this principle, scientific management principle, you will achieve results. Of course, by the time we finish, we'll now see how it applies to the education system. Now, number 6, management has to develop a wage system and incentive to workers for increased productivity. It's not just enough for you to follow procedure. It's not just enough for you to manage time and avoid wastage of time and all that. It's not just enough for you to engage the specialists in the job. It's not just enough to have division of labor. Now, he's saying that for every job done, there should be commensurate wages. For every job achieved, there should be commensurate wages. So it means that work should be tied with wage so that the workers will be motivated. Work should be tied with wages. Now, for a given type of job, there should be a given wage. So for every worker that achieved a maximum result, that worker should earn higher. Now, using our building project, for example, a bricklayer is engaged to build in a house building project. Maybe 5 bricklayers were engaged. All right? And the 5 bricklayers that were engaged were given specific job to be done, blocks to be laid. And out of the 5 of them, one person lays 2,000 blocks in a day. The other person lays 1,500 blocks in a day. The other person lays 1,000 blocks in a day. Now, this theory is saying that the man that has the highest block should earn the highest pay. But when we follow the rule of thumb, so far as all of them have worked in a day we pay you 3,000. So the man who works 2,000 blocks will be earning less, but he would have put more effort. So if you follow this theory, the higher achievement you attain, the higher pay you receive. So workers will be motivated to work. That's what the last principle they are saying. So this summarizes the 6 administrative principles as advocated by Frederick Taylor. Now, this principle, how does it apply in the education system or in school management? How does this principle apply in the education system? That's our next part of call. So let's look at it one after the other. How this theory applies in the school administration. It's a management has to study the way workers. That's the first one. I'm saying management has to study the way workers perform their tasks, gather all information about job knowledge that workers possess, and experiment with ways of improving the tasks they perform. Now, within the school system, who are the workers? Within the school system, we have teachers. So the theory is saying that the manager, the school administrator should be able to study how teachers do their job, the work of the teachers. What do they do? So we should be able to have in the teaching field there, we should be able to have different classes of teachers or different categories of teachers. If we have different categories of teachers, so the the administrator should be able to know the content of what each teacher should teach. The content of what each teacher should teach. Administratively, you should have the knowledge, information about what a teacher ought to teach. So if we say mathematics, the administrator, the manager, should be able to know all that the mathematics teacher ought to know, so that he will be able to know whether he's performing the job well or not. So the job of our administrator is not just sitting down. You should be able to have adequate information and be knowledgeable in all the areas that teachers perform their duty. When you are able to do that, you have all the information in your hand to be able to know whether teachers are doing their job and how to improve those skills of teachers to achieve results. If you don't have that information or that knowledge, you will not be able to know whether teachers are doing their job well or not. So that is why you can hire a teacher in the school to teach mathematics. Every day he's teaching a particular principle. Every day he's teaching the same thing. You have an economics teacher. Every day he's teaching the definition of economics. The definition of economics. The biology teacher. Every day sex education. Every day sex education. The principal does not know what they are doing because he doesn't have relevant information of the content of what the teacher ought to teach. And therefore they are wasting time. So using this principle and this theory, the leader or the administrator should be knowledgeable enough in all that the teacher ought to do in a given period of time. You're teaching mathematics. These are the content of what you will teach. From so time to so time, we expect you to cover this area. So that's how that principle applies to the school system. Then the second one is the standard method of performing each job has to be developed. Standard method of performing each job has to be developed. In other words, the best way or method of performing a task has to be determined and recorded that all workers performing the same task go through the same procedure. So that is why now applying this principle in the school system, what it means here is that standard procedure. First, a teacher who comes to teach should be able to follow the scheme of work or the syllabus. Now, from the scheme of work, he's able to develop the weekly activity, weekly schedule of what is to be taught. From the weekly schedule, he now gets the daily schedule. Every teacher must have a diary where these things are specified. That's a standard method of performing job. So the teaching job is not just going to school and then you jump into the class. No, you will sit down. There is a syllabus. There is a scheme where these things are. There is a diary where these things are recorded. In that diary, you record the subject you teach. All right. Now you record week 1, what is to be achieved. Week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, in that order until midterm break. After midterm break, you recommence again in that order, exam and all that. Now, for every week, every day of the week, there has already been specified what is to be achieved. So that by the end of the term, what is to be achieved is already known. It's already known. So the scientific procedure is where we got that idea, which we practice in school, breaking down this thing by standard procedure, a procedure that is followed to achieve results. All right. Then the third one is select workers who possess skills and abilities for each of the job. So when you want to select those who will teach these subjects, please, what this principle is saying that let a mathematics specialist teach mathematics. Let an English specialist teach English. And of course, you must have selected the best among all that came. Maybe you need 10 teachers, then 20 or 40 applied. Out of the 20 or 40 that applied, you choose the best out of that. And from this best you choose now, you assign them according to the area of specialization. Now, when that is done, you have achieved division of labor. And all these things, you can see them in practice in the school system. So you see that what is mostly practiced in the school system today is borrowed from this scientific method, scientific procedure. So teachers are recruited based on their area of specialization. Carefully select workers who possess skills and ability, in that area. So as they do the work, they do it based on their speciality. That is something they are knowledgeable in. So never you bring an economics teacher to teach mathematics. Never you do that. Never you bring a physics teacher to teach biology. It's wrong. That's what he's saying here. When you bring a specialist to teach those who have the ability to teach, you become efficient and effective in doing that. Something you know how to do well, you do it very well and achieve results. Something that you don't know how to do well, you find it difficult. You'll be battling with it, doing it. So get the best. Get the best who is trained in that area to do the job. And you will achieve results. Then number 4, workers have to be trained in standard methods. Now, teachers, when they are hired, they must be trained. They are along the line of what we call orientation. Orientation, not just hiring a teacher. When you hire a teacher in the school system, you give him orientation on the standard procedure, on the standard methods that ought to be taught. You will now teach him, look, where you have to be tutored on a scheme of work preparation, on the entering of your listening into the diaries, and then preparing your lesson notes. And these are standard procedure, standard method of doing it. You must prepare your lesson note based on the scheme of work and based on daily school activity and all that. So the teacher must be exposed on this method of doing things for result to be achieved. Now, above all, it is the responsibility of the organizational manager or the school administrator to monitor all this. To monitor all this. He is the manager. It is his responsibility to monitor all this and ensure that the worker is complying to these rules. That the worker is complying to this laid down rule in his job. All right. Then number 5 now, that you must plan work schedule. You must plan the work schedule of workers to eliminate interruption and time wasting. Within the school setup, how do we achieve this? This is achieved in the school through the timing of activities, school activities. The timing of school activities. 8 o'clock to 8:20 is devotion time, time for prayer. After that, the next time is the first class. The first class begins by 8:20 to 9:00, whatever, however it is arranged. So you see, that timetable that is pasted on the wall of the school, the wall of the class, is what we got from this principle. Time for lesson, first lesson, second lesson, third lesson, break time, fourth lesson, fifth lesson, sixth, seventh, and eighth lesson. School dismisses. So you see that the school activity is already planned to end by 2 o'clock. So if this method is not followed, people will be in school till 5 o'clock, or people will close earlier, and no result is achieved. And because the timetable is planned, every teacher knows when to appear in the class. Without a timetable, the teacher can come to school and remain in school, and then there won't be space for him to teach. So that is why, following this time and motion study by Freddie Taylor, the school administrator prepares the timetable, and the teachers follows those timetables to teach their courses. So if your course is appearing 3 times on the timetable in a week, you must teach that 3 times. And those 3 times you teach it. In a month, you know the number of times you teach. In a time, you would have concluded the lesson, the scheme of work, and then the result is achieved. That's the essence of the entire thing. And it is the responsibility of the school administrator, being the school head, to monitor and ensure that these things are followed to the letter. Because if he doesn't, there is this inclination of the average worker not to do his work, but he will want to earn his pay. So that is why this must be followed. Then number 6. Now, for every job given out, for every job that workers do, it should be commensurate with pay. It should be commensurate with pay. This is where now the school administration is now raising some question mark. Are teachers paid in accordance to their effort? Are teachers paid? Because the principal said that you must pay a commensurate salary to those who work. So those teachers who spend more time teaching, those teachers who spend, are they paid? Even teachers who spend this number of hours and this number of time teaching, are they paid like their counterparts elsewhere in oil companies or any other industries? Those who have similar qualification with them, are they paid the same thing as obtainable elsewhere? That becomes a question mark. here to in this in our own in school administration. So basically, these are the principles of the Taylor's administrative principles, or otherwise known as the scientific management principles of Frederick Taylor, and how they work and how they can be applied within the school setting. Having said that, the next thing that we can quickly look at is what are the likely advantages of this? What are the likely advantages of this? The advantages of this is that it attaches reward to performance. It attaches reward to performance. You know, so those who achieve result are rewarded effectively. So that will now motivate workers to work. So one, it attaches reward to performance, and then one, it can help increase staff motivation, because a staff knows that when he achieves so result, he will pay so amount of money. And it is this theory that resulted in what became known as what is it called? Overtime in an establishment. Overtime. He fixes time. When you work from so time to so time, this is what will pay you, and this is what, if you work extra time and achieve more results, will pay you extra money. So most institutions borrow this and do what they have called overtime. So if a driver is driving in an establishment and that driver is expected to drive till 4 o'clock and he closes, and is still driving after 4 o'clock till 5, 6, he should be paid extra money. That is called overtime. It is developed by Frederick Taylor. All right. So it also, the other advantage to it is that it helps us to study the task and job requirement. You know, the task to be done and the job requirement. What is required for that task to be done? So you study the task and study what is required of that task to be done, so that you are already well familiar with what a worker is expected to achieve. You are hiring a teacher. You should be able to know the task. When you hire it, you know the task already. So therefore, you know what is required of the teacher. So you see, this principle is mostly applied in public schools. This principle is mostly applied in public schools. The only area where this principle lacks in public schools is the payment, the reward, the payment, the wages attached to hard work. It's not applied. But every other thing is applied in private schools. That's where this principle appear to be more effective. All right. Now, the importance of this Frederick Taylor principle is also in the area of personnel selection and training. Personnel selection and training. So it means that for you to achieve result and goal effectively, there's need for the training of staff. There's need for training of staff. In that area, you want the staff to achieve result. When all this is done, that organization will achieve result. So you can now see why some schools achieve result and others don't achieve result. In every school where this principle is applied and monitored and supervised effectively, they achieve result. That is why some schools, the percentage of failure in public exam is drastically reduced where these principles are followed. But in schools where lies this fair attitude of organizational managers, they check the result that's attained there. Very poor result. You know. So this principle, this Taylor's principle, to a great extent, have contributed to organizational management in modern time, including school administration. All right, so let's quickly look at the disadvantages, the criticisms of the principle. The first and noticeable disadvantage of the principle is that it sees workers as machine. It sees worker as machine. The worker is seen as a machine that doesn't break down. It doesn't know that the worker is a human being. You know, so it does not attach emotional feelings to the worker. The worker have other factors that can make him work or make him not to work, which the manager here or the principal here does not take into consideration. He sees the worker as a machine, a vehicle that must drive from here to and come back again, you know, without feelings. So that's one aspect of it. So in that case, even though it has some motivational effects, it also have Another effect, negative effect on motivation. When a worker is used like machine, he will not be motivated to work. What kind of nonsense work is that? You're turning me to a machine, you know. So the worker indirectly cannot be motivated. All right. Then, so it doesn't have regard for the social context of the worker. The emotional feelings of the worker is not considered. What is considered is the job itself. It pays more emphasis on the job. So we can say that the scientific management principle is work-oriented or job-oriented. It's work-oriented, work-oriented or job-oriented. All right. So, and again, workers are not clearly involved in the planning of the job. The job has already been planned. You have the time, the study, and the study of the job and the requirement and all that has already been known by the manager. So he specifies everything and then gives the worker the job to do. The worker is not in any way involved in the planning of the job. So that's another disadvantage. And because you are not involved in the planning of the job, you will not put your best in that job. All right. So I've also said there's much emphasis on work, much emphasis on work, you know. And then the principle does not also consider the individual differences among workers. Every worker cannot behave alike. Every worker cannot be the same, cannot behave alike, both in terms of intellectual, both in terms of skill, in terms of everything. No, even people of the same qualification cannot behave alike in a work. I have a first degree in mathematics. The other person have a first degree in mathematics. You ask them to teach, they cannot teach exactly the same. So that's another fault of the principle. So these are the disadvantages of this principle. However, no matter the shortcomings of this principle, the principle have helped organizations and establishment in achieving goal. Most of the aspects of this principle has been adopted and applied in the administration of organizations, including schools, and has helped in the attainment of organizational goals. So that is why a study of this principle is also important. So that we look at the advantage, look at the disadvantages, look at the areas we can borrow to apply them in the school setting to aid school goal attainment. On that note, my dear students, that is the end of the class. Next time we shall be examining the human relations. Sorry. We shall be examining the bureaucratic principle. The bureaucratic principle. In our next class, we shall be examining the bureaucratic principle. Thank you very much.